Alrighty, good evening and welcome to a meeting of the Hunterdon Central Regional High School Board of Education. Please be advised that this and all meetings of the board are open to the public and media consistent with the Open Public Meetings Act, and advance notice required therein has been provided. Meeting notice was also posted in the boardroom of the Upper School campus, sent to the Courier News, Star Ledger, Express Times, and the Hunterdon County Democrat, and sent to the clerks of Delaware Township, East Amwell Township, Flemington Borough, Raritan Township, and Reddington Township. The public will have an opportunity to be heard as shown on the agenda. Please stand for a flag salute. Thank you. Heather, can I have a roll call, please?
Dr. Charney, Mr. Davidson, Mrs. Hughes, here. Mrs. Kellogg, here. Dr. Nguyen, Mr. Nickel,
here.
Mr. Richard,
Here.
Mrs. O'Donnell, here, and Mr. Panico.
Here. Thank you. Can I have a motion to approve the regular and executive session minutes of November 15th and November 22nd, please?
So move.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Can I have a roll call vote?
Mr. Davidson,
Yes.
Mrs. Hughes,
Yes.
Mrs. Kellogg,
Yes.
Mr. Nickel,
Yes.
Mr. Richard,
Yes.
Mrs. O'Donnell,
Abstain.
and Mr. Panico.
Yes.
All yes, motion carries.
Thank you. We have correspondence as noted. It's on file in the board office. So I'll turn the meeting over to Dr. Moore for superintendent's report.
Thank you, Mr. Panico, and thank you, everybody. I have a few things to chat about tonight. We don't have presentations tonight, but I do want to give you some updates on a few items. We had a tough day today, and I remarked to some members of my staff that it was the second roughest COVID day that I've been through. The first was back on March 16th of 2020 when Governor Murphy declared that schools would be closed starting that Wednesday. But today, we came into school with the news of multiple positive cases on the cafeteria crew that works for our food service company. And we also had news of dozens of cases among students that were new to us this morning, many of whom are connected to a social gathering just over a week ago. The number ultimately grew to 46 student cases and may continue to climb as we find out more and more. Now that's the highest we've seen in a single day, if not most of the entire weeks or even entire months that we've been at this over the previous 20 months. I haven't really had a chance today to get at those comparisons, but that's my gut feeling about it. Now, due to the concerns about being able to serve lunch today and also facing a massive contact tracing project in the afternoon, we needed to move to an early dismissal, and students dismissed nice and orderly at noon, and I thank everybody for their cooperation today. Contact tracing continues through those 46 student cases plus 3 staff cases, both with our contracted partners who do that contact tracing for us and also with some of our own staff who are working at that through the evening. Tomorrow, we need to put our students on a remote day in order to finish that massive pile of contact tracing. And as we work also to draw out the extent of this exposure to COVID-19 across our student body. From a calendar perspective, just so you're aware, today is exactly the same as if we had closed early due to inclement weather. The day counts, and there's no concerns about us being behind as a result of leaving early today. Tomorrow will also count. We have approval from the Department of Ed to run a virtual day, so tomorrow will count as a full day against our calendar, even though the status of virtual days is a little unclear this school year. So that's some good news from today. I have a little more good news to share in the sense that we're pleased that the Department of Health decided to adjust rules for close contacts staying home late last week. So they reduced the required length from 14 days to 10 days and reinstated an opportunity to return after only 7 days with a negative test. So we're thankful for that change. I'm also pleased today that on late last week, the CDC gave their support to test to stay programs. We talked about those last week, those programs in which close contacts can continue to come to school if they receive a regular negative test during their period of interest for exposure. So the DOH, however, not the CDC, our own Department of Health in New Jersey makes rules for schools. So even though the CDC has given their endorsement to those programs, our state Department of Health has to provide guidelines and requirements before we can adopt that program here. But I imagine with the CDC's endorsement that could move fairly quickly, and we'll be back from break thinking about how to implement, hopefully, a test to stay program. Some thoughts, though, on finding ourselves in this rough spot today. We've been in this spot before. We've experienced disruption to our schedule as a result of the need to contact trace. We had several days last year where we did the exact same thing. We've never experienced it with so many positive cases in one day. However, unless we have evidence of significant spread through school, I'll be eager to get back to our normal schedule as soon as possible. Indeed, our hope is to return to an in-person schedule later this week. We'll need to continue to assess as we go, and we have to take that one day at a time, and that's what we're working at. We do need to step up our responses to the virus a little bit in light of this situation. In addition to moving to a remote day tomorrow, we'll be taking even more aggressive sanitization steps through our operations department. I've had to make some very difficult decisions to close our school to some community users through tomorrow night, and we're just going to have to continue to assess that as we move forward. I hate to do that, but our operations crew isn't in a position to support those events at the same time that they need to conduct all of the cleaning that's now required in response to today's number of cases, and also to keep the building ready for our own operations during the day as we take a more aggressive posture on sanitization. We're also closing locker rooms and team rooms for the same reason. It's difficult to maintain sanitization across campus at this higher level that I'm talking about when those facilities are open and have to be cleaned. Some other spaces, like the auditorium, like this space, and sadly our renovated IMC, will likely need to go under some limited use this week as well, because those are all spaces, including this one, that are difficult to clean when they're being used regularly. So to summarize all of that, tomorrow is going to be a virtual day for students as we complete contact tracing on the nearly 50 cases that we learned about today. Those are in addition to the cases that I reported to the community this morning. Our operations crew is moving to a more aggressive sanitization protocol, and that's going to require a few things. Again, just to summarize, we're going to close or limit access to difficult to clean locations like locker rooms and team rooms, like the auditorium, the little theater here, and the IMC this week. We'll reassess later this week to see whether we need to continue that longer. Second, we'll need to clear our calendar of community events at least through tomorrow night. We'll reassess tomorrow and see how we can continue. Hopefully we can bring all of those folks back in to use our facility later in this week. And we did cancel extracurricular activities on campus today, and we may need to cancel them or limit them tomorrow as well. We'll just have to assess how our progress unfolds through the contact tracing today. So I have had to take all these steps with a lot of worry today that some folks will see them as a signal of a return to remote instruction or hybrid schedule or something like that. Far from it. That's not my goal at all. Let me be absolutely clear. My goal here is to return to a normal in-person schedule as soon as possible. These steps represent our efforts to do just that, even though individually they feel like some steps backwards. They're going to help us clear the deck to get to a point where we can come back to a normal schedule. I do want to remind everyone, too, this is what we predicted for this year, this kind of disruption. This year would be different from last year or the year before, we said. We'd achieve a lot, and we have achieved a lot, but we'd hit bumps in the road, and we'd need to work through those bumps methodically and sensibly, and with an eye toward doing whatever we could to get back to normal as soon as possible. No matter how many cases on any given day put us in that spot, whether we're talking about 6 or 26 or 46, we have to approach it the same way. methodically, sensibly, with an eye toward returning to normal schedule as soon as possible. That's what we did today, so we'll continue to do that this week and always. I am really disappointed by this today, certainly, but I recognize that it represents really some of the price of doing business right now. I'm grateful, though, to all of our staff and all of our students and all of our partners and families for the flexibility that they've shown through this today and always. I'm sure there will be questions tonight, and I'll do my best to answer them as we move through our conversations. My next item is going to feel better than that, because tonight we have two guests with us who deserve special attention from the board and from all of us. We have Jessica Doyle, who is our Teacher of the Year, and we have Jennifer Nectarline, who is our Education Services Professional of the Year. So let's give them a round of applause. And I'm going to step down to the podium real quick because I have a little gift for both of them. And I'd like to see if we can get Mr. Rivera, if you don't mind taking a picture for us. See if we can get a picture of the two of them with you all in the backdrop, and we'll give them a little gift. So bear with me. So Mrs. Doyle, in recognition of your distinction this year, come on up. We have an apple for your desk, right? So thank you. And next line, I'm singing for you. Why don't you bring the whole crew up? Thank you. So it's a feat to be teacher or education services professional in any year, but I have to hand it to you. You've certainly had a tough, as they say in football, you've had a tough schedule this year to rise to the top of that distinction. So from here, they will, Ms. Doyle will compete for the regional and potentially even state-level Teacher of the Year award. So we have a lot of work to do together to support her in that. So let's give them both one more round of applause. Excellent representatives for our school. So thank you so much for your hard work, always and particularly over the past 20 months. We have a couple of other things to celebrate tonight as well, or at least mark. And you'll see there are resolutions on here that require a motion, Mr. Panico, to say farewell to both you and Dr. Wynn as you complete your terms on the board. And I just want to recognize both of you. I won't do you the embarrassment of reading out the whole resolution, but you can see it there certainly on the agenda. And I am just incredibly grateful, as I hope and think we all are, for the position that this board is in for moving forward from here, from your tenure as president. So I could not have had a better, more supportive board president in my first few years here through some very difficult and some very victorious times alike. So I appreciate all that you've done and the spirit from which you've done it as a person who just loves this district. So tonight on the agenda, we have a resolution to recognize you. And Dr. Wynn, as a parent in our district, has made a fantastic contribution to our efforts over the past 20 months. And she brought a lot of expertise that was very helpful to the board from her work in public health and pharmaceuticals and elsewhere. So I appreciated all that she brought to the table this past, through her term as well. So we'll miss you both. but I expect and hope that you'll be at the microphone sometime. So we have those on our agenda tonight. Couple of things that I'll need some board decision on tonight, so maybe we can do some polling later. I am recommending that we cancel our scheduled meeting on January 10th so that we would have reorg on the 3rd, and then we would have a board meeting on the 24th, only because then we can fit in our committee meetings. So on the 3rd, we'll need to roster new committees, and then we can move into committee meetings after that date, and that'll give us an extra week to do that. So I'll poll you on all of that later. And we also have 2 committees that I'd like to come out at least at some point over the next few days before we get into break. I'd like to be able to roster board committees, even though most of the work's going to be done in 2022, and I guess it would theoretically be the new president's job to do that work. It would be, right? So if we have an opportunity to not wait, I'd like to not wait, but we'll see what Robert's Rules has to say about it. But we need some board members to participate in the Equity Committee, Equity Policy Committee project, and we need board members to participate in the Counseling Policy project. So we have staff members who are going to be participating in both of those projects who are all lined up on the agenda for your approval tonight. Staff and student recognition is on the agenda, as is our All-Stars and our Staff All-Stars and our Students of the Month, as is our HIB and suspension report, and we have a handful of HIBs that need a motion tonight. So the 3 motions out of my report are the resolutions recognizing Mr. Panico and Dr. Nguyen, and then the recommendation for the board to affirm the HIB cases that were presented in closed session last week. The very last thing for me to mention is under organizational items, we have a second read policy that's required by the state. This is the policy that would come to bear not for something like tomorrow, but if we found ourselves in, for any reason, a need to go to extended virtual instruction. Districts across the state are passing that policy now because it was just released from the state. And we also have requesting your approval on our CUSAC scores. We've talked about CUSAC. I don't believe that this review is actually going to happen this year, but in order to comply with the deadlines as they're laid out, I need your approval on the scores tonight so that we can submit stuff in time. And with that, I thank you all. Thank you, Mr. Panico and Dr. Nguyen, if you're listening in, for your service. Congratulations to you 2 again, and I'm all done. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I have a motion for the board member recognitions, please?
So moved. Second.
I have a motion and a second. Can I have a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Davidson?
Yes.
Mrs. Hughes?
Yes.
Mrs. Kellogg?
Yes.
Mr. Nichol?
Yes.
Mr. Richard?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Donnell?
Yes.
And Mr. Panico?
I'm going to abstain from mine, but I'll vote yes for Dr. Nguyen's. And can I have a motion to affirm HIBs HC 21, 22, 12 through 17, and 19, please?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Discussion happened in executive session. Can I have a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Davidson? Yes. Mrs. Hughes?
Yes.
Mrs. Kellogg?
Abstain.
Mr. Nichol?
Yes.
Mr. Richard?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Donnell?
Yes.
And Mr. Panico?
Yes.
All yes, motion carries.
Thank you. Now is the time on the. We do have that policy also. I'm sorry. Where's that policy? Is that under after?
Oh, no, that's under organization.
Yeah. Now's the time on the agenda for any items, for public comment for items on the agenda. So those are items in G, H, or I. So if you have comments on any items in G, H, or I, please step up to the podium, state your name, sign in. Public comment is limited to 30 minutes total, and we'll ask each speaker to speak for 5 minutes. So there'll be another one in about 5 minutes. Is it something on the agenda?
There'll be another.
Yeah, just in 1 minute, there'll be another one. All right, seeing no one, can I have a motion on items F1 and 2 under organizational items, please?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, can I have a roll call vote?
Mr. Davidson? Mrs. Hughes?
Yes.
Mrs. Kellogg,
Yes.
Mr. Nichol,
Yes.
Mr. Richard.
Yes.
Mrs. O'Donnell,
Yes.
and Mr. Panico.
Yes.
All yes, motion carries.
Thank you. Can I have a motion on items G1 through G6, please?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, can I have a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Davidson? Mrs. Hughes?
Yes.
Mrs. Kellogg?
Yes.
Mr. Nichol?
Yes.
Mr. Richard?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Donnell?
Yes.
And Mr. Panico.
Yes.
All yes, motion carries.
Thank you. Can I have a motion on H1 through H5, please?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, can I have a roll call vote?
Mr. Davidson? Mrs. Hughes?
Yes.
Mrs. Kellogg?
Yes.
Mr. Nichol?
Yes.
Mr. Richard?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Donnell?
Yes.
And Mr. Panico.
Yes.
All yes, motion carries.
Thank you. Can I have a motion on I1 through I16,
Vinny,
please?
before we move, we have a few additional items from last week. Could I just
Yeah.
point those out?
Absolutely.
Under personnel, items from last week, the first is we have 3 additional resignations. Mr. Kell, Mr. Moss, and Ms. Sutherline. Sorry, we're back
Sorry.
here. Items 10 through 13 that were approved, the committees that were approved last week. There are the staff members who are now put into those committees, so those are the additional items. And then the last thing is we have a new position under I-15, a new school counseling specialist position. So I just wanted to point those out because those are 3 new items from last week.
Thank you. Was that a motion as well? Was that a motion too?
I will move I-1 through 16.
Thank you. Do I have a second? I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, can I have a roll call vote?
Mr. Davidson? Mrs. Hughes?
Yes.
Mrs. Kellogg?
Yes.
Mr. Nichol?
Yes.
Mr. Richard?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Donnell?
Yes.
And Mr. Panico.
Yes.
All yes, motion carries.
Thank you. Any additional business from the board at this time? Hearing none, now's the time on the agenda for the residence forum for any items on or off the agenda. Same format as last time, maximum of 30 minutes. Each person will be allowed to speak for 5 minutes. When you come up to the podium, please sign in and state your name. It is 7:22, so residence forum will end at 7:35, 7:32. 7:52, yeah. I'm not the math teacher in the family. 7:52 is when public comment will end.
So this is time for the public comment?
Yeah, so you can speak now. Just make sure you sign in and state your name.
I signed in.
Perfect. Just state your name.
Can I take this off? So I'm 6 feet away. All right. I'm negative. My name is Carol Prignoli. I'm a registered nurse. I've been a nurse for almost 40 years, and in the health profession at least 40-something years. My daughter is a senior here, and I was going to read something off my phone, but it basically says that in Pennsylvania, they abolished the mask mandate. I wouldn't care, it's Pennsylvania, but I don't know why we're not doing it. I've been doing 1,000 hours of research because I care about humanity, and it upsets me terribly about these masks. And I'm going to try to educate you as well. I'm not a mean person. You're all lovely people, but the masks don't work. I can give you thousands and thousands of information on it. It's toxic. My daughter has Lyme disease. Why is that important? She's been on medication on and off for 7 years, and sometimes the doctors don't take insurance, so I've paid out thousands of dollars. So she just had blood work. She didn't wear a mask all summer, not in my house either. She now has Mycobacterium plasma pneumonia. I don't even know what it is. I talked to the doctor and I said, what is this? She goes, oh, it's from the mask. So it's a blood test that you guys can get for your children because they wear a mask. And I'm going to start being a nag. This is a violation of Nuremberg Code. Also, the vaccines would be a violation of a child, of their lives. You have no idea, those masks that are made in China have graphene oxide in it. It's a poison to the body. I won't start on the vaccines because there's nothing to do with today. All I'm telling you is the reason they're sick is partly due to the mask, and the mask didn't change them from being sick, to be honest with you. The vaccine probably did. You don't have to believe me. I did 1,000 hours of research. I'm nobody. I'm a nobody here. I care about people, and I'm pleading with everybody, please do the research. There's so much going on in this world that you don't understand. Do not force these kids to wear a mask. It doesn't work. It's making them sicker, okay? And I'm telling you, a virologist said if you have 5,000 units of vitamin D a day, you won't get cancer, you won't get the flu. The flu is a lack of vitamin D. Take magnesium and zinc as well. I'm praying to you. I'm pleading with you. The masks from China have garbage on it, and they're killing you. This is not going to protect you. It's not protecting the kids. It's keeping them healthy, keeping their immune system healthy. I wouldn't say it unless I had facts. I have reports here from doctors and virologists, and they're telling you, please, please do the research. Please, I'm begging everybody. They're killing our kids. You don't understand. You don't see it. I do. And all the people in the hospital, 80% are vaccinated. The vaccine is terrible. It's terrible. It has pyrines in it, which is, it's a bug. It's giving them the reason. In my research, the mice that got the shots died within a week. We're now on 7 months. The mice death for 7 days is 7 months to humans. The people that got the shot, they're going to get sick. And I'm going to tell you, those are the people who are probably sick now. They're not going to get better. Please listen. I wouldn't say it unless I meant it, and I wouldn't say it unless I did the research.
Thank you.
Can you guys hear me with this, or?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. Wayne Fish, we kind of spoke last board meeting for a little bit. So, couple of things. I heard your original statement regarding some of the COVID changes. You're wondering you have a question on how you're going to implementing the test to come back to school. Is that really like a question, or are we just going to follow like CDC guidelines? Like why, I'm not sure why that's a question. If we're going to implement it, aren't we going to go off of what's out there? So that's one statement I guess I have because I don't get responses to questions. You're saying you just said that you were predicting all this happening. A couple of weeks ago in our conversation, you said you were not prepared for this. And then earlier, right after last board meeting, I forgot my glasses. You know, you put out a rebuttal kind of statement, and one of the things I was a little taken back with is that, you know, to say that you're not prepared is unfair. I'm feeling like you're just a regular politician over there. I'm like, all we get is double talk, and you're now putting it back on us. You clearly, Mr. Moore, you clearly stated that you are not prepared for this. So to throw it back in our face a couple days later, I take a little offense to that. So, moving forward, you also put out a statement regarding vaccinated versus unvaccinated. I think it was just a couple days ago. So where are we at with that policy moving forward? If we're going to test and quarantine, keeping out, are we now, do we have an answer today? Like to realize that, because the CDC just came out with it already, which is something we've known for a while, which is that the vaccinated people are now having this and spreading it. So are we finally to the point, you as a board, you, Mr. Moore, as the superintendent, that we are going to do something about this? So if you're going to quarantine kids, then you got to quarantine everybody. You can't let these vaccinated kids that are what's deemed as close contact come right back into school the next day. So are we like in agreement now that CDC put out something that this is going to take place moving forward? I know we have a bigger fish to fry with all these cases that are popping up, but here's like how many days and how much more time is going to go by before we have an answer. So so are we in agreement now moving forward that vaccinated kids are going to get the same treatment as unvaccinated kids, or are we going to keep discriminating against? That's one answer I definitely want. The other thing I'm really going to hit home on, and I'm not going to drop it, is the fact that we need to have cameras in classrooms, and this is on every level. Obviously, kids that are out for COVID, you guys are doing something because you have to, because of all the cases that just popped up, right? So I commend you on taking affirmative action. You know, you sent the kids early, home early today, and tomorrow you're kind of taking, you know, we're going virtual with it. But moving forward, we need to have a game plan for these kids. And it has to start, like, man, if you're not prepared for it, man, every day, you know, it's so funny. It's not funny, but more and more guidelines. There was just a nurse in here talking about it. But this stuff's more in the air. Everyone's sanitizing. You're not going to get this stuff through touch contact. We've put so much effort in, you know, sanitizing, hey, it's a great thing, don't get me wrong. But then, you know, let's put that effort into getting cameras in these classrooms so these kids, when they are in quarantine, they are home, they have a way at least to sit in on class. So, you know, meanwhile, we put so much money into other things like I mentioned before, with the lights, with new vehicles around the school. Those gators cost $20,000 to $30,000 each, and we can't have cameras in classrooms. And this is something we've had plenty of time to plan for. So if colleges are now doing it, one thing you guys have to realize, my daughter goes to Hofstra. So there, just like I think I pointed out last meeting, I forget what I covered, what I didn't, but excuse me for that. But, you know, these colleges, they want, if you're feeling the slightest bit sick, stay home and sit in on class from your room. Why can't our high schoolers have that opportunity? Seriously. There's a lot of kids that do not get to go on to college or don't prefer to go that path. Their last shot at learning, their last shot at getting prepared for being an adult is right here. So to be laid back and not do anything about that, that's pretty sad. And I went to school here, as you guys know, and, you know, some people poo-poo this school, and I stick up and stand up for it all the time. We're a regional high school, good learning, good education's being done here. Why are we so far behind with where we're at right now? Because we already pointed out last meeting that the learning options that the kids are presented with are not working for them. Our highest priority right now has to be educating these kids. So that's just some of the quick things I wanted to point out. I thought my meeting was going to be on next month, but now I found out that was tonight, so I quickly shot over here. Anyways, that's just a thing I got right now. And that's all. But guys, I can't stress enough, we need to get cameras in these classrooms. And, you know, the only option that I heard that we came up with, which I kind of laughed at, it's not funny, but I guess it's fun to me, is the fact that, you know, hey, we're working on it, when we said we were not prepared. And what we came out with a program to help get our kids organized at home. Getting organized is not the issue. That's not the issue at all. The issue is that they don't have somewhere to go to learn with what's being presented to them. So let's forget about organizing it, and let's get to putting cameras in the classroom and helping educate our kids. That's it.
Thank you.
Alexei Kudymov, the father of 10th grader here, who is already 2 weeks on quarantine for...
Before you leave, can you just make sure you sign in on that paper? Thank you.
I will, sure. So I would just want to support the previous speaker. Copper Hill is doing Zoom for the students on quarantine. Everybody is doing it. We are only exchanging with our teachers by email, and it's not sufficient. We're missing lectures. We are missing classwork, everything. We are missing our education for such a long time. Since we are sending 48 students home with contact tracing today, it's going to be hundreds of students missing education for next, I don't know how much time, okay? We need to give them an opportunity to catch up. Because when they come back, they take tests, they ruin their scores. It's unbelievably not fair to them, because it's not their fault if they are contact traced. Absolutely not. Do you agree? Okay, I'm signing up. And
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. I'm Sue Duggan. Hopefully you can hear me through the mask. I just want to echo what the last gentleman just talked about. My daughter just got called for contact tracing as well. She's healthy. She's had a negative test, but because she's unvaccinated, she's required to stay home for the entire week. And there's a possibility of coming back for Thursday, but there are no tests available that can get her tested quick enough to bring her back into school. So now my daughter, stressed out about missing the last week of school. There's tests that are happening at the end of the week. Her teachers have no formal plans for virtual education this week. She's going to basically look at a Google Doc, read documents, and teach herself this week. This is not a good situation for a kid that cares about school to be in. You know, over the past 18 months, these kids have had enough to worry about with COVID. The last thing they should be doing is, like, we should be forcing them to sit home. They're going to sit on their phones all day. They're going to be detached from their peers. They're missing school sports. And they're feeling stressed about all the things they're missing in school. And it's not right. It's not fair. It's mentally unhealthy for our kids. We really have to think about what this is doing to them, right? I mean, so immediately, we need to have a plan to have virtual learning for these kids that are getting contact traced, these healthy kids that are forced to sit home and can't participate in school. We need to find a way so that they're not feeling left out and they're not getting punished for being in a situation that they had nothing to do with. And secondly, you know, for the longer term, this test to stay, we need to really consider this. I mean, why can't we do this? Send the kids to the nurse's office in the morning, let them be tested during the quarantine period. If they test negative, let them stay in school. I mean, their mask's up, right? They're all wearing their masks. They're doing what they're supposed to be doing. Don't punish our kids. Don't take away their education. Let's not stress them out anymore. They've had enough. So, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, last call on public comment. Seeing none, I will close the public comment session now and open the forum to board comments if anyone has any.
Just share two items, Mr. Panico. One is, superintendents across the county are working hard at making sure that we can do test to stay. Just understand that that's not our decision. That's a decision that has to be made by the Department of Health with the governor to outline how we go about doing that. We have been doing testing on campus under a state program, so we're prepared to ramp that up and use that to alleviate any additional absence for students, but at this point, we just don't have the authorization to do that just yet. And we've been fighting that fight because I agree, and the CDC now agrees that that's working, but we don't yet have our state government's blessing it for use in New Jersey schools outside of what they've described as a pilot project, which I haven't been able to uncover anywhere in our state. So I just wanted to clarify that there's an awful lot of advocacy going on across the state by superintendents to embrace test to stay, but that we're not currently able to implement that here at Hunterdon Central or really any school in New Jersey. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll say too, I heard two themes, both last week and again tonight, right? One theme is on the policies, the mask policies, the testing policies, the quarantine policies. And the second one is kind of school operations with the cameras. And to go in reverse order there, I said it last night, I'll say it again, right? Our job is to deliver the best possible education that we can. And we take the feedback, we bring it back to committee, we bring it back to school operations, and we do what we can to improve it. And, I know this board talks about regularly how we continue to connect with kids who are home at quarantine. And I know that, we talk all the time about each student. Each student's important to us. So I am going to continue to encourage the board to bring those topics up, debate them, talk through them, because it's really important that this feedback is taken into action. We need to listen to what's being said, because there are ways that we can connect with students. And I want to make sure we're not missing those opportunities. And secondly, on the policies, whether they're recommendations, whether they're guidelines, whatever the word is, these are requirements from the state. We have no choice. This isn't our discretion, right? And we can look at Middletown, because I've had Middletown pointed out as an example to me many times. And one of the times Middletown was pointed out was, I think, last year with the masking guidelines. And they made this grandstand about how they weren't going to make their kids wear masks until the governor threatened a lawsuit, and they backed down and followed what he said. So what we're doing here on this board is real advocacy. The superintendent's doing it, I'm doing it. I've been with state legislatures twice in the past week, going at these issues that we're here talking about. We are trying to affect change in a real way. But I will continue to urge you to take that conversation to the people who make the decisions. This school board doesn't. We are handcuffed and bound by inept leadership in Trenton. We need change there if you want change in those policies. That's the place for the fight. It's Andrew Zwicker, it's Roy Fryman, it's the county commissioner, it's the county commissioner, the county educational superintendent, it's the governor. That's where you need to go. That's the battleground for that conversation. We need your support there. We are on the same side of this field. I want to fight with you guys there. Join me in that conversation. The superintendents around the county are doing it. I'm in email groups with other boards, other board presidents in this town or in this county, fighting the fight. We need your support there. Go to your legislators, go to your governor. That's where it happens. And this is it. I don't really have a speech planned. There's not much more I could say. School board comes and goes. I've been on this board for 6 years now. I had 3 at Reddington. I've walked in the door here with staff members lining the halls, applauding during contract negotiations. I've been in the field house where it's been full of staff members upset about job actions. I've been here when we've had parents packing the room over tons of different issues. And it leaves quietly as it starts. Remember, the work that we do on this school board is for the students. We take this feedback and we bring it back and we do the best that we can. the folks that, line up in thrall to voice their opinion about our decisions and the things that happen in this school, when the issue's over, they're over as well. And, it makes me sad that, the folks who have come out and we've made decisions for, the folks who we've supported in 6 years, aren't here. And it says a lot, but it also says what the school board is. The school board is a great job to have. Every day, we get to work with teachers, we get to work with students, we get to work with parents in the community on making this place better, and making tomorrow better. And that's what really excites me about this, and it's what excites me about bringing in new leadership into this school board, and giving more people opportunities to sit at this dais and have their hand in this. So I'm excited for what Hunterdon Central looks like over the next 3 years, over the next 9 years, because this is a great place. In my opinion, it's the best school in New Jersey, and it's one of the best schools in the country. So it's been my pleasure to be on this board, and I look forward to watching the success of all you and the success of future generations of students, teachers, and board members from that side of the podium. So with that, can I have a motion to adjourn to executive session for matters of HIB and school security? I expect we'll be in there for about a half an hour with no action to be taken when we return.
So moved.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.